We've talked a bit about brain drain before, right? And how it's affecting a lot of countries. Well, today, we're going to kind of do a deep dive into what's going on in Zimbabwe. We found this news article from November 2025 all about how they're trying to deal with some serious shortages of skilled workers in their budget. It's a pretty big deal for their economy, so we want to try to get a sense of how bad this skills gap really is, what they're trying to do about it, and basically what it means for Zimbabwe's future. So right away, this article mentions that Zimbabwe is putting aside $6 million to try and fix this. What do you think? Is that like a drop in the bucket? Or is that a sign that they're really serious about this?
It's tough to say for sure, without knowing Zimbabwe's total budget. The article doesn't really give us that information, unfortunately. But we could maybe look at their budgets from past years and just like their overall economic situation to kind of understand where this fits in. What might be even more helpful, though, is comparing it to what other countries are doing. The ones that are facing similar brain drain issues. Are they spending a lot more money? Are they trying totally different things? It could help us figure out how Zimbabwe's approach measures up.
Yeah, good point. Context is definitely key. And speaking of context, Zimbabwe actually do a huge GE skills audit back in 2018. I found the report, and it breaks down all these skills into like 6 major categories. There's engineering, sciences, business, agriculture, medical fields, and then arts and humanities. But here's the crazy part. Only one of those categories had a small shortage of workers. Arts and humanities, only 18%. But all the others, all of them were over 90%. So what does that even mean? Like on the ground, what does a 90% deficit actually look like?
Whoa, a 90% skills deficit. That's wild. Think about it. Businesses can't find qualified people. Innovation just grinds to a halt. Even just daily life gets tougher. Imagine needing to build a bridge or find a doctor. But 9 out of 10 people with the skills you need just aren't there. It affects everything.
Yeah, totally. And it's especially worrying when you look at agriculture. They have a huge deficit, something like 88%. It's kind of ironic, right? Because agriculture is like the backbone of their economy. 68% of Zimbabweans work in it. But they're missing almost 9 out of 10 skilled workers in that area. So what happens in the long run if you have that kind of imbalance?
Oh, it's a recipe for disaster, for sure. You'll see low productivity, the quality of their produce goes down, and eventually the whole country could face food insecurity. It could also make them way more reliant on imports, hurt economic growth, even lead to social unrest. It's a critical area they need to address.
Okay, so we've got these massive shortages in really important sectors. But then the 2018 report throws us a curveball. Business and commerce. They actually had a 21% HURP less of skilled workers. What's going on there?
Now, that is interesting, isn't it? There are a few possible reasons for that. Maybe their education system is just geared toward business, pumping out more graduates than they need. Or maybe the demand for business and commerce skills is just way higher than other sectors because of how their economy is structured or the kinds of companies they have there. But to really understand this, we have to take a closer look at Zimbabwe's economic landscape. Like what kinds of jobs are being created? What industries are drawing people in? And why?
It's almost like their education system isn't quite matching up with what the other really important sectors need. And speaking of preparing for the future, the 2018 report was pushing for updates to their education programs in tech fields, stuff like nanotech, robotics, big data, cybersecurity. It's all very fourth industrial revolution, which that 2025 budget article mentions too.
Oh, right. The fourth industrial revolution, or 4IR as some people call it. It's all about how physical, digital, and biological systems are merging together. Artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, genetic engineering. All these advances are kind of blurring the lines and changing how we live and work.
Yeah, and it's definitely reshaping job markets globally. Lots of traditional jobs are becoming automated, while new roles that need specialized tech skills are popping up. So the big question is Zimbabwe trying to ride this wave of the fourth industrial revolution to get ready for the future, or are they already behind, playing catch-up while dealing with this huge skills gap?
Honestly, it's a little bit both. They seem to get that they need these cutting-edge skills, and they're trying to work them into their education system, which is good. But starting with such a big disadvantage in those core STEM fields makes you wonder if they can really take advantage of the 4IR. It's a race against time, and they've got a lot of ground to cover.
Okay, so they're taking steps, but they're starting pretty far back. And this brings us to the medical field. The 2018 report said it needed a major overhaul. They talked about adding things like genomics and AI to medical training, but then they also talk about expanding international skill exchange programs. It seems a little contradictory, don't you think?
Yeah, it does seem like they're trying to run before they can walk. On the one hand, they want to train medical professionals for this future where genomics and AI are everywhere. But on the other hand, they're so short on basic medical staff that they're relying on help from other countries to fill the gaps. It really shows you how complicated this problem is. Trying to jump into the future of medicine while struggling to meet basic healthcare needs right now.
It's definitely a tough balancing act. But is relying on those international exchanges a good long-term solution? Or is it just a temporary fix? And how does this all connect back to the brain drain the article mentioned? With skilled professionals leaving Zimbabwe because of all the economic and political problems. We'll dig into that when we come back for part 2 of our deep dive into Zimbabwe's skills gap.
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. Trying to build for the future when you're struggling with basic needs right now.
Exactly. And that brain drain is a big part of the whole thing, right? It's got to be hard to build up a skilled workforce when all the qualified people are leaving, because of all the political instability and economic problems. So kind of shifting gears a bit here, what are some things Zimbabwe could actually do to try and fix this whole mess?
Well, they've already started tackling that education mismatch we talked about, making sure that education and training programs actually line up with what employers are looking for. It's a really good first step. It's about giving people the skills they need, not just for jobs today, but for the jobs that'll be around tomorrow.
Right. So it's not just about teaching someone how to fish. It's about teaching them to fish in an ocean that's constantly changing with all this new tech and everything. So beyond changing the curriculum, what else can they do?
Attracting and keeping skilled professionals is super important. And that's where fixing those underlying political and economic problems comes in. If they can create a stable political environment, where things are predictable, and combine that with some solid economic policies that actually encourage growth and opportunity, well, that's key to stopping the brain drain.
So it's about making Zimbabwe a place where people feel good about their future, where they see chances for themselves and their families. But even if they can keep the talent they already have, they're still going to need to bring in skilled people from other countries.
Right. Absolutely. Zimbabwe has to make itself look like a good place for skilled workers from around the world to come to. Part of that is offering competitive salaries and benefits, for sure. But it's also about creating a society that's welcoming and inclusive, and making it easier for skilled professionals to immigrate.
So they need to highlight what makes Zimbabwe special, right? Like their natural resources, their cultural heritage, those up-and-coming industries. Maybe they could have a slogan, like Zimbabwe, where innovation meets natural wonder. Okay, maybe I need to workshop that a little more.
You're getting there. But yeah, the point is they need to tell a story that really resonates with skilled professionals, people who are looking for a fulfilling career and a good life.
Okay, so I've got curriculum reform, fixing the political and economic situation, and attracting global talent. But let's circle back to that massive agricultural skills gap for a second. We're talking 88%. What can they do about that? Especially since agriculture is so important for Zimbabwe's economy.
They need to invest specifically in agricultural education and training. It's about making agriculture look appealing to young people, showing them that it's not just about hard labor, but a dynamic field that can actually help solve global problems, like food security and climate change.
So it's about modernizing how people see agriculture, showing that it can be a fulfilling career, a career that makes a difference.
You got it. They could create special agricultural schools, offer scholarships and incentives for students who want to study agriculture, and they could even team up with experienced farmers to offer practical training and mentorship.
Making agriculture cool again. I like it. Now, what about those cutting-edge fields like nanotech, robotics, and AI? How can Zimbabwe catch up in those areas, especially since they don't have a ton of resources?
They need to focus on strategic partnerships and collaborations. Partnering with universities and research institutions in other countries would give them access to all that specialized knowledge and expertise, stuff they might not have easily available right now. They can also look to international organizations and private companies that are investing in these fields, for support and collaboration.
So learning from others who are already ahead, using those external resources to build up their own capacity, kind of like a big skills exchange.
Exactly. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Learn from the best and speed up your progress.
Collaboration is key. We've talked about bringing in global talent, but what about all those Zimbabweans who've already left? Is there any way to bring them back? To get them to use their skills and experience back home?
That's where diaspora engagement comes in. A lot of countries that are dealing with brain drain are reaching out to their diaspora communities, offering incentives and opportunities to come back and help develop their home country.
So it's kind of like a reverse brain drain. Instead of losing talent, they're trying to bring it back.
Exactly. They can tap into the knowledge, skills, and networks of those who have left and create ways for them to come back and contribute. It might involve things like tax breaks, help with settling back in, or even special programs that use the diaspora's expertise in key sectors.
So it's about recognizing that those who left still have a connection to Zimbabwe, and they might be willing to come back if things are better.
It's a win-win situation. Zimbabwe gets their skills and experience back, and the people who return get to help their home country grow and develop.
So, to recap, we've got curriculum reform, addressing the political and economic issues, attracting global talent, investing in agriculture, strategic partnerships, and diaspora engagement. That's a lot to juggle.
It is. But you have to remember, fixing something as complex as the skills gap means taking a multi-pronged approach. There's no magic solution, no one-size-fits-all answer. It's about understanding that all these challenges are connected and then coming up with a coordinated strategy, one that deals with both the symptoms and the root causes.
It's like this giant puzzle where all the pieces have to fit together just right, but even with a perfect plan, there are bound to be some bumps along the way, right?
Absolutely. To put these solutions into action, they'll need sustained political will, effective governance,
Yeah.
and a real commitment to transparency and accountability.
So it's not just about having a plan on paper. It's about having the resources and the willpower to actually make it happen.
You got it. Getting the funding and resources is going to be a big hurdle. That $6 million allocation is a start, but it's going to take more than that to really make a difference. Attracting foreign investment, using their own resources effectively, and making sure everything's transparent, those are all crucial.
And then there's the whole challenge of dealing with bureaucracy and resistance to change. Trying to change policies in education, training, and immigration takes time and effort, and a willingness to shake things up a bit.
For sure. And it's not just about filling the skills gap, it's about doing it in a way that benefits everyone in Zimbabwe. Access to education and training needs to be fair. There should be opportunities for everyone, no matter their background or where they live, and the benefits of economic growth need to be shared widely.
So it's not just about the economy, it's about social good too. It's about empowering people and creating a more just and equitable society. But with all these complexities, how will the average person in Zimbabwe actually experience the impact of all these efforts?
Ideally, they should start seeing more job opportunities, better wages, and better access to quality education and healthcare. Their overall standard of living should improve.
So it's about creating a Zimbabwe where young people have the skills to compete globally, where skilled professionals feel appreciated and want to stay, and where innovation thrives and drives economic development. It's a pretty compelling vision. But we've also talked a lot about how technology is changing everything, and that brings us to the last piece of our puzzle. So join us for part 3, where we'll explore how technology can both make Zimbabwe's skills gap worse and help solve it.
So we've talked a lot about Zimbabwe's skills gap, haven't we? The numbers, the reasons behind it, possible solutions, and how it fits into the bigger global picture. But there's one thing we haven't really dug into yet: technology. It's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to this whole skills gap thing, wouldn't you say? Oh, absolutely. Technology is a big reason why we're even having this conversation about skills gaps in the first place. Automation and AI are changing everything, right? Jobs are disappearing, industries are transforming, and it's creating this demand for new skills that a lot of education systems are struggling to keep up with.
So technology is actually making the problem worse.
Well, it's not that simple. While tech is definitely shaking things up and making some jobs obsolete, it's also a really powerful tool for closing that skills gap. Think about all the possibilities. Online learning platforms, virtual reality simulations for hands-on training, AI-powered tools that can tailor learning to each person and give them feedback. All these advancements can make education more accessible and make it easier and cheaper for people to learn new skills.
So technology isn't the bad guy after all.
Not at all. It has the potential to completely change how we learn and pick up new skills. The real question is, how can Zimbabwe use these advancements to their advantage?
That's a good question. We talked about how they're trying to bring emerging technologies into their education system, but what else can they do?
Investing in a really strong internet infrastructure is crucial. If people don't have reliable, affordable internet access, then a lot of these tech solutions are just not an option. They also need to focus on digital literacy, making sure everyone has the basic skills to navigate the digital world. And if they can create a good environment for tech entrepreneurship, that can really boost innovation and open up new opportunities.
So it's not just about using technology, it's about creating a space where technology can flourish.
Exactly. If Zimbabwe can build up a strong tech sector, they can attract investments, create jobs, and empower people to be a part of the global digital economy. It's about turning a challenge into an opportunity.
Zimbabwe's situation really shows how things are changing globally, doesn't it? We're moving away from those traditional static jobs and skills and into a world where you got to be adaptable and keep learning your whole life.
That's exactly right. The skills you have today might be totally useless tomorrow. Things are changing faster and faster, and we all need to be okay with constantly learning new things, just to stay ahead of the curve. And it's not just about learning new technical skills either. It's about critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and collaboration. Those uniquely human skills that are important no matter what you do.
So we need to be tech savvy, A&D human centric, always evolving and adapting to this crazy, ever changing world.
That's it. We're living in a time of massive change and huge opportunity. If we can embrace lifelong learning and adaptability, we can not only survive in this new world, but actually thrive in it.
We've really explored Zimbabwe's skills gap from all angles today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to think about. Imagine you're advising the Zimbabwean government on how to tackle this problem. What would be your top priority? What's the one thing you'd focus on above everything else? It's a complicated issue with no easy answers, but by thinking critically about the challenges and possibilities, we can all play a part in creating a brighter future, not just for Zimbabwe, but for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.